Hello everyone, it's Al Nigrin, Executive Director and Curator of the New Jersey Film Festival, back with another group of filmmaker interviews that we will share with you. But before I introduce our first guest, I would love to tell you about our film festival, which is now in its 38th year. It's a biannual film festival, and the New Jersey Film Festival has been showing films since 1982. The Spring 2020 New Jersey Film Festival will be taking place on select Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings from January 25 to February 28. And we have 27 wonderful films that were selected from 611 entries from around the world. And so we'll be screening the creme de la creme between those dates. Today, we have a wonderful filmmaker who I met back in 1986 at the San Francisco Art Institute. We both were showing our movies at the same time, so it was purely a coincidence that Mark Street is here to talk about his wonderful documentary film called Work Songs. Welcome, Mark.
Nice to be here.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
So tell us what the motivation for making this documentary was.
Well, I've always been interested in work. I made a film called Fulton Fish Market in 2000, the last days of the Fulton Fish Market there in Manhattan. I made a film called Lima Limpia, about street sweepers in Lima, in Peru. I made a film called Happy, which is a remake of The Pretty Month of May by Chris Marker, where I interviewed people on the street in New York, asking them if they were happy. And a lot of them are workers, UPS drivers, and people out on the street working. So I've always sort of observed work and enjoyed its sort of balletic visual aspects. And in this case, I wanted to go a little deeper. Studs Terkel was sort of my North Star in this one. I read that when it came out in the 70s. I remember my parents reading it. And I reread it, and it really holds up. His sort of style of interviewing, his way of letting people speak, and things like that. So I just started small, interviewing people, let the thing sort of build on itself, and tried to find as many varied stories and narratives as I could in people's work, daily work.
Yeah, I mean, your film is a lot like a quilt. And there are so many different components. You interview a UPS driver again, but from a contemporary standpoint, you interview waterfront workers in Pittsburgh. We jet from LA to San Francisco to Seattle and to North Carolina, Virginia, Pittsburgh, New York City. And as I was watching your film, and as I mentioned to you before, I saw it very much focusing as a worker, as an artist, almost as a craftsman, but craftsman as artist. Did you see it that way as well?
Yeah, I really felt like these people had stories, and if there's one sort of takeaway that I hope people get, it's to sort of consider what people are doing as we move through the world. A lot of people are sort of invisible to us, obviously waiters and people who are out in the street or whatever, and just sort of consider what narratives accrue around what people do for a living. I remember when I was a kid, middle-class kids worked more than they do now. They're all doing soccer and studying for the SAT and things. But those stories I had, personally, as a bar back at 16 in Beloit, Wisconsin, and as a fry cook, 10 o'clock at night to 6 in the morning in a gap year. Of course, gap year was not a gap year. It was called not knowing what you're doing back then. But those were really important to me, more important to me than what I was learning in school in some way. There was a whole sort of psychological complexity to the characters one encounters in the workday. So I was really trying to get at that.
Yeah, and I think you do a masterful job. I really see so many other films that could come out of each one of these stories. I mean, The Farmer from Virginia, that could be a film by itself. I mean, there's so much to be explored in the stories of this farmer and how he's had to transition over the last 30 years. I thought that was fascinating. But I also really, really liked the fact that you kind of do something similar to your Happy movie, where you ask about these people's weirdest stories. And was that something that was premeditated? Did you ask that to each one of these people, or?
I pretty much did. I mean, to me, it's great dinner table conversation for the reasons I mentioned earlier. You know, you sit around a table and you say, what's the weirdest thing you've ever done for a living? People can talk for hours.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody's got some strange experience.
Yeah, some of them were, you had to kind of take a shower after you, you heard them. But I really liked that. And so I think in watching your film, I wondered why you ended the shot. There was one shot at the end of the film, without giving anything away, is a fellow who's carting off these boxes. Why end the film there?
Well, the end of the film, I'll give it away, is a sort of more observational section in a factory in North Carolina. And I sort of wanted to trace the factory from beginning of the day to the end. And I just sort of felt like him moving into the distance at the end of the day is the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. At first when I saw it, I said, I thought maybe you should end with the gal talking about the colors, but then now that you say it, it makes perfect sense. Well, folks, you absolutely must see this wonderful, wonderful film. We are going to be screening it on Saturday, January 25th, and it will be playing with another short film that has work in the title. It's called Textile Workers by Andrea Nappi and Juno Room. It's a kind of music video which was shot on film, scratched on film. It's a fantasy. It's really quite beautiful, and I think the perfect marriage between Mark's film and theirs. They're both going to be on hand to do a Q&A afterward. That's one of the wonderful things about our festival, is that many of the artists come and discuss their work with the audience, and that way that kind of wall between the artist and the audience drops. And there's usually a lot of scintillating questions, so I'm excited to see you guys there. So that's on Saturday, January 25th at 7 p.m., and that's going to be in Voorhees Hall, room 105, which is our state-of-the-art facility. It features high-definition projection, a nice sound system, stadium seating, cushy chairs, and graded so nobody gets in your way. And it seats about 250 people. It's at 71 Hamilton Street in New Brunswick, New Jersey, on the Rutgers campus. We're a block away from the New Brunswick train station. And general admission is $12. $10 for students and seniors, and if you want to buy tickets in advance, they're $14. So come and join us, and come meet Mark Street, a wonderful filmmaker and wonderful guy.
Is it a good job?
It is. It's the guy I work for now is a real good guy. The industry's changed a lot over the years.
How's it changed?
For the worse.
Yeah.
There was a time as a Chevron driver making oodles and oodles of money, and then they got rid of us and went to the carrier. So work is, this job originally started out at about $30 an hour and went all the way back down to about 18 in 2000, and now it's back up to about 27. So it's gone through some change for sure.
Who do you blame for the bad change, bad fortune? The economy?
Yeah.
Are you union or no?
Used to be. Used to be. Chevron was union at one time, but not anymore. Most of the unions are a thing of the past.